Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Board of Public Education meeting on agenda review. Reminder to turn off all cell phones and pagers. We'll begin this evening with the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit report. And the first thing we have is the Committee on Education in front of us, presented by Ms. Shireen in her committee, Shealy in her committee. Any questions on the Committee on Education? Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. My question is that the majority of these board tabs that we're looking at tonight are for non-public school services, which we have to provide, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Eisler.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Mr. McCray.
The Title I funding, does that pass through the district or does it go directly to you?
The Title I funding for the delinquent and neglected institutions goes right to the IU. The Title I for the non-publics goes to the district and then comes to the IU.
Any other questions on the Committee on Education? All right, let's move on to the Committee on Business for the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit. Are there any questions on that? It's the blue pages. Anyone? Okay. Ms. Spear, do you have anything to add to the discussion?
I don't. I was just going to bring the 3 grants I was asking the board to accept. And then there are two Title A staff development for the non-publics, as Mr. Eisler brought up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I forgot to ask you in advance.
That's quite all right.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll move on to the Pittsburgh Public Schools Committee on Education, also presented by Ms. Shealy and her committee. And Dr. Lippert, would you care to give us any kind of information on it?
Yes, I would like to open up this evening. We have 2 corrections that I'd like to take care of before we go through each section. The first one is going to be in your tab summary, so where the summaries are, and I want you to go to page 19 of 21. And this is going to be related to item 47 that starts on page 18, but the correction is going to be on page 19 of 21. It's number 47. Oh, don't go to the tab. The tab's correct. It's the summary that we have to correct.
It's a confusion with some of us. Some of us don't read these. We just read the tabs as opposed to the summaries. That's why we're a little confused.
Page 19 of 21. Everybody there? Okay, again, the tab is correct. What we need to correct on the top of page 19 of 21 is you see schools listed. It starts with Pittsburgh Westwood, Pittsburgh Whittier, Pittsburgh Schaefer, and Pittsburgh Roosevelt. The Pittsburgh Schaefer should be Pittsburgh Langley K-8. That is correct in the actual board tab, but not correct in the actual summary. So we're crossing out Pittsburgh Schaefer and replacing it with Pittsburgh Langley. And then the only other item before I summarize our packet tonight is that you have in front of you a green folder. And in the green folder is item number 52. And I believe this is submitted by our naming committee, Mrs. Khaleesi, Mr. McCray, and Mr. Sumter. And this is a replacement tab for item number 52 that's included in your general authorization. Okay? All right, would you like me to summarize our packet this evening? Mrs. Hazuda, you want me to run through it? It's a long packet, so bear with me. I'll try to do a thorough summary, but not too long. Okay, in our first section of proposals and grants, we have 4 items that we're going to ask you to consider tonight. 3 of those are acceptance tabs, and 1 is a submission. In this section, there's 2 notable ones that I want to mention to the board. The first one is our Start on Success program, a workforce grant that actually supports our Start on Success program with Students for Special Education. It's about $100,000 and it supports our students in career development. The other one that I would like to bring the board's attention to is our Accountability Block Grant. We're very pleased, I know the board is as well, that we had the restoration of this. It is level funding from last year, but it does allow us to serve 181 more students that we wouldn't have been able to serve had we not had the Accountability Block Grant restored in the governor's budget. You'll also see in this section we have a submission. It's also related to early childhood, and those are for our 2 Head Start and Early Head Start grants. So that's the only submission. The other 3 are acceptance. As we move into our consultants and contracted services, we have 20 items. Of those 20 items, we have 4 that are school-based, supporting schools such as Brashear, Allegheny K-5, and Beechwood. We have 3 tabs that are related to an action that you took last month, related to our U.S. Department of Education Math and Science Partnership Grant. I'm sorry it wasn't June, you took this action in May. What this tab does is that you accepted the grant funds for our 3rd year and final year of the Math and Science Partnership Grant. It actually allows us to expend those funds on our 3 returning contract providers, which is the Institute for Learning that provides the evaluation of the grant, the University of Maryland at Baltimore County, and also Education Development Center, which supports the actual activities of the grant with our teachers. We do have a a tab in here for our interim health, our licensed medical professionals that support our nurses when our nurses cannot be on site at schools. That tab is reduced from 10 medical professionals that we used last year. This year we're asking for 5. Also in this section, we end that section with 6 early childhood tabs. Those are all renewal tabs supporting American Red Cross, our foster grandparent program, our Carnegie Library Blast program, and some of the other activities in early childhood. And we also have 6 tabs that are related to annual renewals for special education. The majority of those tabs are actually related to supporting our emotional support services, supporting our emotional support students. And those are all, again, annual. Moving into the payments authorized section, we have 11 items of notice or tabs that are of note in this section. Our Camp Guyasuta, which is our annual renewal. We're going into our 5th year of 9th Grade Nation, and this supports our freshmen going to Camp Guyasuta for a day, as well as orientation activities that start at the end of August for our 9th graders. We also have a tab supporting our PRC teams. Our PRC is the Promise Readiness Corps. It supports 2 teams at Allderdice, 2 teams at Carrick, and 2 teams at Brashear. We also have a tab requesting support for the community transition between the Oliver and Perry merger. We have several tabs supporting some of our schools. We have 3 early childhood tabs in this section. Again, these are all annual items, CPR certification, and providing various services when we have early childhood parent and community events. And then moving into our last section, this is a big section as well. This is our general authorization section. We have 18 items in this section. At the beginning of the section, we have 3 agreements, partnership agreements. The one I'd like to call out is with item number 36. It's our after-school providers. We're asking the board to approve 60 after-school providers. This is an increase of 6 from last year. Our partnership is going into the 3rd year, and it services over 4,000 students pre-K-8 and after-school programs. So that's a very notable one. We also have 2 partnerships that are moving for early childhood education, supporting our Crescent program, early childhood, and then another one that offers student nurses opportunities with our early childhood program. You have a companion tab in here that does relate to the June legislative vote, and this is about the gifted services that we said that we'd bring back to you. This is about Fulton on-site gifted services. So we're asking the board to consider on-site gifted services for Fulton K-5, and that again goes along with the companion tab that you approved in June that supports on-site gifted services at Colfax K-5, Dilworth, and Grandview. We also have 5 textbook adoptions in this section. You have those in the board office. One of the ones I wanted to highlight is the 2nd grade novel. We're excited about this because oftentimes students in primary grades actually don't get to read novels. So we do have a novel going into 2nd grade this upcoming school year. And again, this is aligned to the Common Core state standards, which require students to have more complexity of text, more difficulty when they read, and sustained time on reading, which typically doesn't happen when they read short stories. So we're excited about this. We also have our biology curriculum, as you might have heard. Not too soon, or very soon I should say, our students are going to be required to pass a biology keystone in order to graduate from high school. So one of the things we had to do was go back and look at when the board previously adopted biology textbooks, and whether you're talking about CAS, AP, core biology, or PSP biology, each one was over 10 years old. So that means they're not aligned to AP assessments, they're not aligned to the new science standards, they're not aligned to Common Core. So you have the full series from AP to CAS to PSP to academic biology all moving forward. And then you also have 2 tabs supporting your math in CAS. The board will remember, I believe it was in May, we asked you to approve Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 for PSP and Algebra ABBC. This is actually the CAS version, which is the honors version, and it's actually the same text. So it's nice that we have some alignment. But again, the reason why we have to do these is because our current CAS textbooks are not aligned to the Common Core. And our students are going to be required to take Keystone Algebra. So we have to get them the materials that actually align to the standards. And a couple more in this. I told you it was a long packet tonight. We have 6 donations in this section that total approximately $135,000 donated to the district. We have 1 to Science and Technology from the Spectroscopy Society for $5,000. We have some bikes, which is the tab that we corrected, number 47, being donated to 4 of our elementary and K-8 schools. We have 2 tabs that are supporting incentives for our AP summer program, which we're in our 3rd day of, by the way, on the CMU campus, and also Pirate tickets and Riverhound tickets. And we also have 2 donations supporting our early childhood program. PNC Grow Up Great and the National Aviary are very large donations totaling about $120,000, which include our fund drives and the Grow Up Great campaign. And we also have, in the 3rd year, a donation supporting the Back to School Early Childhood in Service Day. And last but not least, 2 remaining items. We do have the naming of our Pittsburgh Online Academy. I did include in front of you some of our recent marketing and advertising materials for you to review. There was an article run. The website has launched, by the way, and postcards are going to be sent by the end of the week. So I thought I would include that for your review. And the only other remaining item, I believe it's number 53, is an amendment to a previously approved board tab. Sorry to be so long, but it is a long packet tonight.
Pardon me? Yeah, thank you very much. I think that really helps. So we will start with the proposals and grants. It's number 1 through 4 on the green pages. Mr. Brentley, we'll start with you.
I just have one quick question. Doctor, you mentioned for number 3 that the accountability block grant, we thought that we were going to lose it, or we thought that it would not be restored back to the amount, but it is, so, or at least near that. Can you tell me, will this have an impact on next week's furloughing of teachers? Will this be able to restore any of those positions?
I can let Carol provide details, but it does allow us to serve 181 more students.
Okay.
And I'll let her comment on the number of staff.
Okay.
Carol Barone Martin, Executive Director for Early Childhood Education. It will have an impact. There will be less people furloughed. We are waiting to hear about our allocation for our other grants. And once we hear about that, we'll know about the rest of the people that potentially could be furloughed.
Okay. And when do you think we'll know that before the start of the school year?
We have not been given an absolute date on when we'll know, but we expect that we would know by the end of this month.
Okay. Now, have we submitted, I know we annually submit applications for Head Start money, is that correct? August?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Have we started that process?
We have submitted our annual application for Head Start. And this, what you see in your packet today, is we also have to submit a recompetition grant for the following year. That's 2013-14. And we're in the process of submitting that now. It's due in August.
Now that means, because I thought I read a blurb in the paper, that dollars that we normally just automatically receive, we now have to compete
That's correct.
with other districts?
Well, whoever applies. But it's for the city of Pittsburgh, so it probably would not be a school district. It might be, it may be an outside agency, but we're really not sure if anyone else is applying for it.
Okay. I just wondered, if you would, Ms. Barone Martin, I think it's worth an extra blurb in this year's application, the accomplishment of your male initiative program that you have there, the 3 or 4 gentlemen working hard, and also it is worth a blow with the national recognition that we received. And maybe it may give us a slight edge in getting our same dollars, or maybe it'd be worth some kind of increase. So I'm hoping that you would submit something that would mention the accomplishment of your department there.
It's actually, I have written that part of the grant so far about parent involvement, and we have a big piece on that, and I got information about the award that you received, and I've added that in.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Brentney. Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you. Ms. Martin, I'm sorry. Dr. Lippert did say that the accountability block grant, we were getting the same as we had last year, so it was flat this year. But I didn't hear for sure what she said about the Head Start grant. Is that the same as last year?
The current Head Start grant is the same as last year, although they changed our fiscal year, so they're taking away 1 month of our funding because we're going to have a different fiscal year going forward.
So what exactly does that mean financially?
We're not exactly sure what that will mean yet. We don't know if they're just going to, we don't know how much they're going to adjust our grant by, because they're changing the fiscal year end from June 30th end to, they're making it a June 30th end, and it has been a July 31st end. And we have not received our information on exactly what funding that will impact.
Okay, so how does that help you, though, with what you have to have ready for September for these students? I mean, how would you know?
We expect to know by the end of this month.
Okay. Thank you. That's all for the grant.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Fink.
Okay. With the accountability block grant, we were going to have to begin charging people who made a certain percentage above the poverty level. Is this accountability block grant going to enable more people to access our preschool free of charge the way it once was, or are we still going to have a fee-for-service commitment?
We will still have a fee for service for those families that make over 300% of the federal poverty level. But our biggest waiting list is for the group of people that are between 130 and 300% of the federal poverty level. That's where our biggest group waiting list is, and that's the individuals that we will support with Accountability Block Grant.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink. Dr. Hawley.
With the same,
Just
with
wait till
the
everybody's done.
funding, are we opening up any new classrooms? Are we closing classrooms? And if we are, what classrooms are we opening and where are we closing them?
We're still waiting to get our whole picture of funding, as I said, but it looks like we will be opening up 85 of the 86 classrooms that we had in this past school year. There will be some movement because there'll be an additional classroom at Lincoln, a classroom at Sunnyside that we did not have in the past. There'll be classrooms at Peabody that we didn't have in the past. But, so there'll be a little bit of movement, but we expect to have about the same, one less classroom than we had before, taking into account that we'll have some people that are paying tuition, as well as the funding that we know about so far.
Are we still having the same amount of classrooms moved from Rosenstein to the Peabody Obama, to the Obama building?
There were 5 classes in Reisenstein, and they're all moving to the Obama building, and we're adding 1 additional classroom in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you. Ms. Brown Martin, for clarification, Mrs. Fink mentioned about the fact that we did put out information about parents paying. And that came about as a result of?
Well, there's often been parents who have wanted to come in that didn't meet the income guidelines that of our grants. And so we have not been able to consistently open our doors to parents that make a certain income. So we wanted to be able to offer it consistently to parents that were over 300% of the federal poverty level. And right now, everyone is invited to attend, but those folks will need to pay tuition.
So it is open to all families in the district, some who may have to pay, but the 300% of poverty is something that is in legislation from Harrisburg?
That's correct.
That is not our decision?
That's correct. That is the cutoff for our pre-K counts
So
grant.
the fee-for-service is something that the state started, right?
The fee-for-service is something that that was discussed at a state level, but we decided we would do it so that people who made over that wouldn't have to just be hanging out there, that they'd have the opportunity.
Good, thank you. I mean, I think it's a great alternative, but I just think that the public needs to know that it's not something that we started. It's something that is within the current legislation because some people feel that some parents can afford to pay, correct?
Correct.
I just personally want to thank a lot of people in this district, and especially Dr. Lane, for the number of trips she took to Harrisburg to advocate on behalf. This was the accountability block grant was zeroed out this year. I mean, it's something that was restored. And at an earlier meeting, you had a report, Dr. Lane, that we were going to have to drastically cut the early childhood program. There's a tremendous amount of work in the entire state by a lot of advocates on behalf of the early childhood community, since they cannot advocate for themselves, to have the money restored. And again, it's flat funded, but it is back in, and it's going to help a lot of children. And I just think that the legislature and the governor need to be thanked for this, and we hope that it'll continue next year and hopefully grow. But Ms. Barone-Martin, you and your staff did a tremendous job keeping parents calm, both parents who are in the program now and those coming in, and I think that's really important. And I think that these two early childhood grants, both tab 3 and 4, which are Head Start and Early Head Start, we oftentimes forget about our Early Head Start program, but again, it's one that gets a lot of recognition not only in the state but in the country. So thank you for everybody for their hard work to continue to provide these necessary services for young children. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Mr. McCray.
Mr. Eisler covered it quite well, but we neglected to thank Macy's for the program that they're doing at Arsenal, and give a heads up to the SOS program. It's a great program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Ms. Shealy. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. A general comment, we still don't have the agenda review material online as of yet. The packets, it'd be helpful. Some reporting I do comes from that. A general comment that a lot of times we're going over these tabs and there's things that are introduced. However, we don't get the feedback on the tail end as far as the results. And I would say, as an example, when we had the decision to assist students below 2.0 that were 1.5 if they got a tutor, could play, what's the results of that decision? How many students were helped? How many students weren't helped? Was it a benefit? Was it not? It'd be nice to get the feedback. So I was just throwing it out as a general comment that perhaps we do that in the future going forward, as far as we're looking at things on the front end, but it'd be good to know what's happening on the back end, whether it's effective or not. It's good to see that out of the 53 tabs in the Committee on Education, that 16 or 30% were for the early childhood programs. Along with my colleague, Mr. McCray, it's good to see that Macy's is doing a donation to Arsenal. However, my concern is that the advertising stops just with the donation, that the advertising doesn't continue. And in just looking at that first sentence or first few words, I mean, the word Macy's is all over the place, that this is Macy's African Drumming. I didn't know that Macy's could coin that. I think they would just make a donation for African drumming and that's it, but the name shouldn't continue all year long. We're doing Macy's African Drumming as a part of not, and that goes to advertising. It's like for $3,000, they get a bunch of advertising if their name continues and it's known as their program, et cetera. So that's basically all the concerns I have with that section. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. All right, we will move on to the next section. It's consultants and contract.
Excuse me, I'm really sorry. There was one clerical item that I forgot take care of at the beginning. And we do have to pull item number 37. I apologize, it was in the general authorization. I was so excited to share the information, I forgot to tell you to pull that item. So item number 37, general authorization, we're pulling. It's the second tab in the section. I think we need more time to work on the information before we bring it forward.
So you are going to continue to work on that in an attempt to bring that forward?
Yeah, we couldn't finalize the details to bring it to you for a vote, so we just need a little more time on it. So you can expect to see it in August.
Thank you, because that was one of the things that excited me in the package.
All righty, so we will move on to consultants and contracted services, numbers 5 through 24. It's the bright pink pages. Mr. Brentley, we'll start with you.
Yes, I have a question for number 7. And this is an agreement with, or contract with Keys Services, which is otherwise known as AmeriCorps. Wonderful program. They're going to be providing a lot of services at Allegheny School. I believe it's 5 employees or somewhat employees, and it's coming at an unbelievable rate. This is submitted by Dr. Atua. Dr. Atua, let me first say, let's see. Let me first say, I understand what you're trying to do here, and I understand it's very, very creative to continue to provide services. My question is to you, when reading the description, it sounds like a lot of the responsibilities of these AmeriCorps workers or some of the responsibilities of some of the employees that we may have laid off, furloughed, or otherwise. And so I'm going to say what it looks like. Please tell me it is not. And it looks as if we furloughed those individuals and bringing folks back to provide their services at this rate. And I understand it's the wonderful savings, but it's a little misleading to what we're telling the public. So I'll allow you, if you can, please clarify. And let me also say, too, personal connection, love Allegheny, no one there, but still volunteer there. And I know that the principal there, Miss O'Malley, is a very, very hardworking principal, and she's going to do what she has to do to make things work and to make the connection. So I understand that, but I have to raise those concerns for the many of employees that we will be furloughing this month, and now possibly bringing others to do their job. If you can clarify that for me, please.
Mr. Brentley, I'm going to
Yes. Okay.
take a stab at this. We do apologize for any confusion because the services provided by the AmeriCorps 5 individuals are not instructional services that our certified teachers provide. AmeriCorps actually supports supplemental programs very similar to the tab that you'll approve for after-school service providers. So they are providing more enrichment and supplemental services, tutoring, after-school programming, and mentoring. So during structured time like recess, AmeriCorps members would work to provide structured activities during recess and after school. So this isn't replacing teachers who are required under the PA school code to be highly qualified to actually instruct academic classes. This is to support and provide supplemental services to students in after school and other times throughout the day, such as recess.
Okay, and Doctor, you would agree with me what it appears. And this is why, I have to raise the question, I'm sure. After this meeting, you may get other questions from the viewing audience to just ask to make sure that. So, okay, well, if you're on top of it, you're on top of it.
We actually appreciate you bringing this up so we could take the opportunity to clarify that, so thank you.
I can understand that. Also in that paragraph, it mentions the one will be serving as a community liaison, similar to, if not exactly what our what do you call it? Parent engagement folks used to do. So, Doctor, it points to a lot of things, and I just want to say for the record, I'm hoping that is not the trend. I am hoping someone is monitoring this. Our individuals that we have laid off or furloughed, were great employees. You know, they were doing a wonderful job for what they were being paid, and so to do this, you know, it's out there. So I just wanted to raise a question. Thank you for responding to it. My next question is on number 13. And Ms. Barone Martin, we're going to be on you all night. Oh, night. But it's all good though, so don't worry about it. This is the grandparents, the American Red Cross Foster Grandparents Program. This is unbelievable. These are 5 days a week. They're giving up 6 hours a day for 160 days at $2.65 per hour. And I understand volunteers. How long, or is this a new program, or we've always had the grandparents?
We've had this program longer than I've been here. So, you know, I would guess we've had it at least 20 years, if not longer. And it's an agreement that, this agreement is what the American Red Cross pays these individuals. It's a national program, and it works for them because they're all in low income, and it's just seen as a kind of a token. It doesn't kind of interfere with the rest of their benefits. So this is, you know, this is really just a standard rate that they're paid.
Okay, and we established that rate?
No, the American Red Cross has established that rate.
We established our portion of it, which is that the 50 cents?
50 cents.
Oh,
we did not, we did not establish that either. That's just what the partner agencies pay.
Okay. There is, let me first say, Dr. Lane, I would hope at the end of the year that you would bring these sweet young ladies before us for some recognition to one of our legislative meetings to acknowledge their services that they're providing to the district. And secondly, while this is a national program, Ms. Barone Martin, there is nothing that would prohibit the district if we wanted to give something more.
I don't know. I'd have to check into that. It's really been determined that whatever other benefits they receive, that this amount of money would not interfere with their other benefits. So I wouldn't want to do that.
Okay. Well, listen, if it's possible, but even if it's not possible, I still want to be able to say on record, it will not break the bank if we were to offer them another $1 an hour. You know, if it will not interfere with their income or anything along those lines. Secondly, Dr. Lane, I'll allow you to be creative, but at the end of the year, we as a district should not only be able to recognize, but provide them with something. If they're low income already, they probably have their own grandchildren, I'm sure, possibly. And so just to say that we appreciate, you don't hear about stuff like this that often. And they're giving up time to come into the district. And so I'm asking that you be creative, do something along the line, those lines. And if any of them are watching, it's hard for me to believe. Thank you, grandparents, for coming. How many are there, Ms. Martin?
It changes from year to year, but there's about 25. And we do recognize them, as you saw at the parent recognition dinner, and they all get an award.
But we don't, I mean, from a district. That's, you did that, it was a good job, yeah. So, okay, well, that's unbelievable. That's a great thing. That's so good to hear. So if you can look into that, if there's a possibility, if it won't interfere with their personal income, and if it won't interfere with the national program, you know, I'd like to see us look into at least offering another $1, as well as whatever we do at the end of the month, end of the year for them. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back to number 1. Can somebody tell me what kind of professional development this Jewish Family and Children's Services is going to provide? Thank you. Number 5.
On number 5, the Jewish Family and Children's Services are actually providing professional development to the teachers at Brashear High School, specifically around their ELL, ESL students, our English as Second Language students. Brashear is our largest ELL site, having 168 ELL students across, I believe, at least 6 different major groups of students coming from different locations. The reason why the Jewish Family and Children's Services are selected is because this agency works very closely with our district's ESL department to actually enroll and ensure that as families settle in the area, that they're actually enrolled within 30 days. And so that partnership has been established with the district, which is why Brashear selected the Jewish Family and Children's Services to actually do the in-service training. And the training is really around how do you make the children feel comfortable in your school, especially when there's language barriers. So that's really the focus of the work, is around cultural sensitivity training. How do you make students feel comfortable, make them feel welcome, make sure they have the services that they need, et cetera.
I wasn't questioning the company or firm or group. That I was questioning what type of professional development was actually being provided, and I think you've answered that. So if I could move on to number 7. I too, as I read the description in this tab, I began to question, for example, I'm reading down, I'd say about 4 or 5 lines from the first paragraph up. It says, in addition, they will coordinate after-school tutoring and develop a structured recess program for 500 students during the school day. The first question that came into my head is, okay, I get the after-school tutoring, but who was structuring recess time before?
I'll defer to some of the elementary experts at the table, but typically it's very difficult to have what we call coverage or duty periods in an elementary. So oftentimes the principal themselves actually covers recess. Oftentimes they have other folks volunteer to do it. Janine, you can chime in because I'm not quite sure how Allegheny did it, but it's a difficult prep to cover because teachers typically have their lunch when their children eat lunch.
Okay, that's fine, I get that, but I guess what I'm questioning is, if you are asking Keys to come in and do this, if Keys wasn't there and if you didn't get this money, who would do it? Okay.
So it depends. This activity is not typically owned by any particular bargaining unit group. So it could fall on the administrator, it could fall on the teachers doing it, it could fall on a teacher in charge doing it, the counselor. We look very closely at these anytime that we have staff reductions to make sure that the constellation of activities is not owned by any group that might no longer be in service here. And so we do have the AmeriCorps workers already in our schools now doing these similar activities. And so this constellation of work was not previously owned by any group. So these anybody can do that activity. It's not isolated to one group.
Okay, so I get that. The
other thing too, the other thing I just want to say is that, and we can do more follow-up with Mrs. O'Malley, but to say, this isn't to say that they're doing recess, like kids are out there playing and they're supervising recess. This is actually saying that during recess, that there's other structured activities going on that may not be going on if you didn't have them. So you still could have, for example, I'd have to see how she's actually thinking about doing this, but this doesn't mean that children still aren't outside having recess that's supervised by the regular school staff. What's happening is that now you're having structured activities that are being in addition to.
Okay, I think the tab itself was not well written, so maybe we can have that relooked at. And then on number 21, there's the block where it indicates the category of this contract. Is it new or renewal? It's marked as both. Can somebody tell me which it is?
It's actually the second year. They provided these services last year to Allegheny.
So it's a renewal,
It's a
not
renewal.
new?
Yes.
Okay. That's all my questions in the pink. Thank you, Mrs. Zuda.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Fink. I'm good, thank you. Dr. Hawley.
I too had some concerns about number 7. I can understand them doing partnering with the school after school for after school tutoring or what have you. But now they're working during the school day. And I too am a little bit curious as to what did they do before. Now, I know that they used to have a full-time vice principal, and that vice principal now is going to be between two schools. So that is done. You lost a classroom assistant, so out of Allegheny from your own matrix here. So that's being done. Did they have a parent engagement specialist at Allegheny?
We'd probably have to, so that we give you accurate information, go back and check that. I don't have that with me. I don't think
Okay.
Janine does either.
So I'm a little bit concerned about the fact that now the AmeriCorps people are going to come in, and not that I have anything against the group coming in and working in schools, but I do have a problem though when we are laying off people and they have now assumed the duties of those other people. And in terms of them doing lunch duty, teachers do lunch duty all the time. That's just part of their schedule. It's a duty period. So that's not the issue. So I'm just really concerned about that being done. Can you tell me about number 9? Explain to me a little bit more about this grant.
So number 9, number 10, and number 11 relate to the third and final year of the U.S. Department of Education Math and Science Partnership Grant. The grant was written and awarded, and it focuses predominantly on high school. Actually, it does focus on high school, predominantly on algebra. So that's where the focus of all of the services. You approved in May the final year of funding, which is about $270,000, I believe. And that $270,000 goes to support 3 key partners that we used in year 1, year 2, and then again asking you to use those in years 3. Those partnerships are named in the actual submission of the grant from year 1. So these are renewal tabs, and the Institute for Learning specifically was the institution that, or is the university under the grant that is a requirement that you have to have an evaluation piece. So there are evaluators, University of Pittsburgh through Institute for Learning, LRDC, are the folks that are actually a partner with us to evaluate, and then EDC, which is Education Development Center, and the University of Maryland, Baltimore County are the 2 universities that we partner with, and EDC is actually not a university, but similar to IFL, actually that provides the professional development and some of the services to our teachers.
And do we have an evaluation on how well our students actually are doing with this project?
So this project does actually, the MSP grant actually focuses on teachers, but there is at the end of the grant, we can probably get you some data that I could provide to you around impact. I think when we did the board update, we are still waiting to finalize year 2, but a lot of this is around teachers developing their content knowledge. Teachers actually take content tests as well as pedagogy, so a lot of it focuses on teaching practices, and I'm not quite sure what they're measuring in terms of student achievement. I believe it's because in 9th grade we don't have PSSAs, so I actually have to go back and double check with Eden, who's our secondary mathematics supervisor, to see what the measurement is for students, but I know that's included, so I can get back to you on that.
Okay. It would seem to me that the students would, if it was a 2-year grant, that you've already did it in your 2nd year, we're now in our 3rd year, we can actually look at the PSSA test scores to see if that knowledge actually carried through to the, we can't? Okay.
No, because their first year, the students would have been in 9th grade, and then last year in the 2nd year, they're 10th graders. So the first cohort of students would actually just be in 11th grade this school year, this coming school year.
And so they'll be taking the PSSA exam this year? The 11th graders don't take the PSSA
Well, they
exam?
usually do. We have to, get this information to the board, but our state has eliminated the 11th grade PSSA, and they're going to be required to take the Algebra Keystone, English Literature, and Biology Keystone. So we're moving to course examinations in high school for graduation. So that's new. It's relatively very new. So it's just information that's recently coming out from PDE.
Okay, so we can use that then?
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have some data then we can use to see if this really impacts student education.
And I'll see, I think we have some things now, I just can't cite it off the top of my head, but I'll try to get you something.
Okay, I just wanted to see if it was being worthwhile. Number 15, and I guess that's for, can you tell us a little bit about the work sampling packet and the $7 that this, for per student?
The work sampling is one of the state-approved assessments for preschool children, and work sampling online, which is what this tab is for, is to input the work sampling data into a database, and then it gives us data per child. It aggregates it by class, it aggregates it by region, by race, by program, however we want that. So we're able to use that information to plan for our program.
Is there any chance that the elementary schools that the children will be going to, will they be able to access that data so that they can better prepare for their kindergartners when they come in?
Actually, starting with this past school year that just ended, we have put together a file folder on every individual child with their work sampling data and their portfolio information, and made copies and sent it to the receiving elementary school.
And then I have a question for number 22 and number 24. This is the same kind of question I had last month about a particular person being a part of the program. Now, Mr. Altman, if I'm not mistaken, works for Glade Run. Now, I might be wrong, or did he quit? And we have him, I know that he worked, well, he used to work for Glade Run. Does he still work for Glade Run? And then he has a separate, I don't know, what is this?
Mary Jane Conley, Executive Director, Special Ed. Mr. Altman never worked for Glade Run. He was an employee of Pittsburgh Public Schools as one of our school psychologists.
Oh, okay. So now he's just going to be at Oliver? I mean, what is it now, Oliver McNaughton?
Citywide Academy at Oliver.
Whatever.
He is going to support the transition of the program from the former McNaughton to Oliver for next year. He will also be supporting our therapeutic classrooms that we have in the 6 to 8 programs.
Now, maybe I got the wrong person then.
Maybe.
Because I thought Mr. Altman worked with the therapeutic classrooms before.
He did. He has. He has worked with the 6 to 8 therapeutic classrooms for a few years now.
Okay. Well, that's the right man I'm talking
yes.
about then. Okay.
Yes.
Woo. I thought maybe it's loose in it, Regina. Okay. Okay. So he worked for the school district, not for Glade Run.
He's a contractor for our school district at this
He's a
point.
contractor
Yes.
for our school district. Well, and he also contracts for Glade Run, with Glade Run. Because he was always with me when they came through Lincoln.
That is because Glade Run was the mental health agency that provided services to the program. So he worked with Glade Run as a contractor with Pittsburgh Public Schools. So they worked together.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
Thanks for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay. And my next one is, I was wondering, and I like the fact that for number 25, we're continuing with Camp Gasuda. The children, they love that program for the 9th graders. They really get excited about going there. So I'm glad we're still having that. For number 26. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong one. Oh, okay.
You are losing.
Okay. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. You'll know when I lose it. Yeah. You'll know when I'm losing it. Thank you. I'm sorry. I was on a roll. Didn't want to miss my turn.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley, for your enthusiasm. Mr. Eisler.
I think maybe we'll just let Dr. Hawley run the agenda, and then that'll be it. I've got a question a little different on 7. And when I read this as a pretty positive experience for 2 reasons. One, AmeriCorps students coming into our district. Do we have AmeriCorps students in other schools?
Yes, we do.
And have we had them for an extended period of time?
I don't know the extent. I don't know if, Janine, you know how long, but I know they're in the district. I'm not sure how long that partnership has existed.
Okay. I mean, I just, it's twofold. One, given the fact that we are experiencing budget cuts and they're going to continue to experience budget cuts, I think it's great that other community organizations come in, and Key Services Corp has a pretty good reputation, as far as I know, in this city. The second thing is, I'm sorry, I'll let Mrs. Azuda finish. I think the other thing that impresses me about AmeriCorps and Teach for America or any of these other programs is you get young people who may never have thought about working with children, and getting an experience like this, it can be a really, really good career move for them, and they're exact types of people we would like to come into the profession. So I think from a twofold point, I see this as very positive. I mean, the replacing of staff is not going to happen. It really is a supplemental program, and that's how we've been using AmeriCorps, as supplemental to the regular programs.
Yes.
And so this is the first time at Allegheny.
It's
Second
actually
year.
the second year at Allegheny.
Okay, and the first year went really well?
From what Dr. Atua tells me, yes.
Great. So that Dr. Atua is happy with this particular project?
She's shaking her head behind you, yes.
Great. The other question I have is dealing with number 12, interim health care. I know that this is a continuation of this particular contract. And this has been an issue with a lot of parents, again, with not having nurses at every school. This particular format for serving the schools with people, trained people who know how to deal with children who are experiencing some difficulty, this has worked out well? I mean, are we meeting children's needs?
Yes, we are. It's an additional resource for our nurse practitioners, and it's to
Right.
ensure that we have the medication coverage when our nurses are split between buildings.
And by trained people who know about medication and medication delivery, correct?
That's correct, and when they're not giving medications, they're there to assist with our other activities.
And is this enough to cover the district with both our nurses, our health staff, and these interim services?
It is.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Asuda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Mr. McCray.
Thank you. I had a question also on number 12. It defines them as licensed medical professionals. Could you give a list of exactly what licensed medical professionals they're using? Are they RNs, LPNs, nurse practitioners? Do you have that? You can give it to us in an update or something like that. And then number 15. My only concern with number 15, and just a comment, is the safety of the identity of the students. And I know the answer is yes. You're taking all precautions necessary, but I'd like to get it on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Ms. Shealy.
Thank you. Just another follow-up to Mr. McCray's on number 12. If these are LPN versus RNs and so on and so forth, this rate should move. Like, we should not be paying the same for an LPN as we pay for an RN. That's a completely different level of certification.
Yes, and what often happens is we negotiate for a particular level, and there are different costs associated with a different level. What we've been able to do and been very pleased is that if we negotiate for an LPN and they don't have one, and all they have is a nurse practitioner, that's who they'll send, and that's what we get billed for. And I'll have Ms. Ripper jump in, but that's typically how it's been, and we have a longstanding good relationship with the companies that they always, if they're going to send up, they don't bill up.
So is this would this be the rate for like an LPN? This is the minimum or minimum rate is this rate. Okay, I think I should have asked that question first. Yeah, okay, thank you. And just on number 7, the discussion about recess, there are schools where recess can be compared to Lord of the Flies. And I hate to throw anyone under the bus, but I know that my children's school uses parent volunteers heavily for recess. And I'll actually get really personal and say that my mother last year went up every Tuesday for 2 lunch periods and 2 recesses. And God bless her, because it was Lord of the Flies. And so having these volunteers here to help with recess, I think, really is beneficial. It can be bad. I think you should go visit and see. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Just a couple quick comments or questions. On number 14, that's the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh BLAST program, early childhood program. This is where they're going to be working with supplemental literacy programming for children enrolled in the early childhood program. Are they at all going to encourage getting library cards and using the libraries in the city?
Yes, they definitely do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. On number 22, that's the one with Glade Run Lutheran Services. I assume this is how we've paid them in the past, but the only question I had is that it's talking about how they're getting paid at a rate of $29,000 per classroom. Do we know how much service they're going to be delivering, or just that they get paid based on how many classrooms they have?
I'll let Mary Jane Conley correct me if I'm wrong, but we're actually paying for a full-time therapist that is in the room full-time in these classrooms. So full-time, 5 days a week, all year is what we pay for with our therapeutic classrooms.
All right, thank you. That's it. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Ms. Shealy.
I think also, I think it was number 7, that the tab was checked new, and that would have helped. Am I on the right one?
Yes, it is.
I think it would have helped to give context if it had been checked correctly. Thank you.
Mr. Brentley.
Yeah, just a quick question. Doctor, for number 12 and number 13, that's the interim health care and the American staffing, both kind of overlapping with substitute nursing for the district. What is the role and what is the relationship with the nursing system that we have here? Is there an association, or is there an opportunity where they meet to make sure that everybody's on the same page with providing the services? What is there a relationship at all?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I could, with our nurse practitioners, they do our state mandated requirements at a service of 1,500 to 1 in terms of the physicals and whatnot. Where this particular tab there was a regulation that was beginning to be enforced, I believe, 3 years ago, that requires a different level of care in terms of giving out medication. We used to have a self-administration of medication policy, and so these services actually help us meet that requirement in terms of having someone who's trained to hand out the medication. Because we don't want to have them there just for that 1 or 2 hours, they do remain with us and do help coverage for other activities. So if we have a lot of activities that are going uncovered, they can help fulfill that. But their primary reason for having them is to fill that requirement around our medication administration.
Are they identified any differently than our district nurses? Without, maybe by ID, or do they wear something differently?
No, because we don't have a uniform policy for our nurses, so we don't have one. Typically, the individuals in the school would know who their general nurse is because they have contact with them at all times. But I could defer to Ms. Ripper if she knows that if they wear IDs or whatnot when they come in.
Jan Ripper, Chief of Student Services. Yes, they wear IDs. They work with the team leader of a region of our schools, and they're introduced to the principal, so the principals know who they are coming into the building. They sign in, they sign out. All our medications have a student pictured name on, so they're familiar with the student when they look to administer the medication. So there's very good communication.
Okay, and we do have, I mean, there is a certification difference between what our nurses have or required versus the
Right.
sub-nurses.
Right, and these individuals are used mainly for administering medications when the nurse isn't there. So they have a schedule that they adhere to based on the medication administration.
Okay, and then the final question, are we at all out of any compliance, state, local, national, in terms of what we're required to have with the number of nurses versus the number of students? And
No,
the
we're
kind
not.
of certification they're supposed to have?
We're in compliance. In fact, we're over compliant. So, I mean, we really work to what's necessary in schools. So we try to do as much as we can more beyond.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Moving on to the next section, payments authorized, numbers 25 through 35 on the blue pages. Mr. Brentley, we'll start with you.
No questions.
Okay, Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you. I'm gonna go first to number 28. You guys must have changed these board tabs a little bit, which is fine, but up on the left-hand corner under the actual title of payments authorized, it has blocks of teacher, other staff, students, or parents. Can you tell me for number 25, what would be the square that would be checked?
I'm sorry, did you say 25? Are you on Camp Guyasuta or are you on?
Yeah, I am on Camp Guyasuta. Would you, I mean, how do you determine why
Oh.
you're picking one of these boxes?
Oh,
Let me
so-
do it that way.
Okay, so it answers the question, who does the payment go to? Does it go to teachers, students, parents? In this case, Camp Guyasuta is an outside firm. So it answers the question, who are you paying? Who is the check being issued to?
So, like on number 28, then, is it students?
No. Well, in a true sense of the word,
Yes.
they are students, but they're college students, and our board tabs here actually, I mean, they're our students, pre-K-12 students. This is the students that are at IUP, which is why
Okay.
they check students, because it was the most applicable box to check.
Okay, 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 so on, number 31, this is a board tab that you're bringing back somebody for 5 weeks during August and September, but it's a furloughed teacher. Can you explain exactly how does that work? So let's make the assumption, just for the sake of conversation, that this teacher is furloughed and come September, or we'll say middle of August, this teacher would get called back. Who does then this work? How does this work?
Okay, I'll rely on my colleague, Mrs. Spooler, if I misstate this incorrectly. But it's the way that the cash flow actually works, because there's also a related item. So 30 and 31 actually go together. There's two teachers that we're asking to support our curriculum writing because they went through the MSP training, by the way, and they're now currently furloughed. The money, they're actually not through our payroll, which means they invoice us and we pay them separately. If they get called back, what would happen is that it would go through our payroll system. The amount doesn't change. It's how the payments are actually processed. So normally, you wouldn't approve a board tab to pay teachers because we pay them at a rate, right? It goes through just regular processes through the curriculum instruction, the academic side of the house. But because they're no longer teachers with the district, we're actually paying them for the services just like we'd pay an outside firm. So we're just calling your attention that we didn't go and randomly pick teachers. We picked teachers who were who were in the math and science partnership. They got extensive training. They're certified to do this, and they're doing this for the next couple months. Again, if they were called back, it would go through our payroll system. It wouldn't be to an outside. We have to treat them like an outside entity now, which is why the outside firm or person is checked, because you brought our attention to the top box. If they were still employed on staff with us, we'd be checking the box of teacher. So I don't know if that confused you more. I did try to provide some clarity on that.
It kind of did confuse me more. I get what you were doing. What I was trying to understand was, I think I am going to ask you, Ms. Brewer. They're working 5 weeks, August and September, okay, through those 2 months. Say they get called back as a regular teacher to the classroom in the middle of these 5 weeks. Do they then not be able to do this work? So they're still going to do this work even if they get called back?
So I think in that instance, we'd have to look as to whether or not they could fulfill the full scope of their teaching position, if they were in fact recalled to a teaching position, and also have time to complete the obligations that they've entered into through this contract. If they could not, we would not allow a double dip, so to speak, and we would have to reevaluate that situation.
So that would take me then to, go ahead, Dr. Long.
Yeah, I'm sorry, if I could just add to that. We've had teachers doing curriculum work while teaching all along. And so really the only difference for these folks is that they would have been teaching, but they're currently on the furlough list. So because we've had other teachers that have done both, and obviously $5,000 is not like, years and years of work. So my assumption would be that they could still complete both because other teachers have done it as well.
Okay, and that's kind of what I was trying to get at, was can they finish both if they were called back? And then I guess my other question would be, to do this work, did you just like look at the list of furloughed people and go or were you looking for specific talent to do this work?
We actually had a posting, which we do for all curriculum, and these teachers actually applied when they had provisional notices but weren't really sure where they were going to end up. So we actually did a full process to, give any teacher who's interested the opportunity to go through an interview process, and then based on their effectiveness as a teacher, based on past experience with professional development, past experience with curriculum is how we go through a selection process. So they were chosen through a selection process when they were actually teaching last year before they were furloughed.
Okay, thank you. And then I think I have one more. Oh, number 33, which is the bus passes. Now, this is for early childhood. Any discount? No discount. How many tickets does this buy? How many bus passes does this buy? Doesn't.
This is an up to amount because in the past we gave out more bus passes, and this time we only are going to use them in emergency, a short-term emergency. So bus passes are $90 a month, but we are hoping that we would be able to actually use bus tickets, like weekly or daily tickets, if someone has an emergency.
So the families aren't going to get the bus passes like they have in the past. Is that what you're telling me?
That's correct. Last year it was $500,000 for bus passes.
And, well, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Fink. Dr. Hawley.
Okay, now I'm on the blue section. Again, I want to say DASUDA has done this is a nice event for our 9th graders. They really do enjoy this. So I'm glad to see that this is continued even though we're in a budget crunch. Number, where am I? Okay. Number 26. Can you explain to me why it's only at what I call the ABC schools?
These are the only 3 schools that actually have the Promise Readiness Score, the Career Ladder Teacher Program.
And I thought we were going to extend that to more high schools this year.
So we're moving into our 2nd year of the Promise Readiness Score. So just to revisit to make sure everyone has a context here. Last year, our Promise Readiness Score teachers started in 9th grade. That group of teachers now will loop to 10th grade with those students. So our first priority was to backfill the 9th grade teachers that are now moving to 10th grade next year, because it's a 2-year loop that they move. So our priority was to staff the freshman classes at these 3 high schools. What ended up happening is based on our candidate pool and the number of teachers that actually went through the selection and hiring process, we were only able to maintain at these 3 schools. As we get further into our Empowering Effective Teachers work, we hope that this program expands to other schools. But right now, we're having the program in 9th and 10th grade at these 3 high schools.
I have to say that I'm a little disappointed that something that that the district feels that your office may feel will help students academically and really empower a teacher to help his or her students, that it's not in some of our most challenging high schools. So every time this comes up, I'm going to bring this up. It's not that I'm not going to support this being a part of the ABC schools. I do think that we need to start looking at how that can be expanded into some of the schools that are really struggling. Some of the high schools that are really struggling. Number 28. I'm so happy that Mr. Bivens had the foresight to see that since he has a large student teaching population from IUP, that he's going to have those teachers come in early to actually help at the very beginning with his teachers. I was wondering, are we able to extend this same opportunity to Faison, because they are the other school that has a substantial amount of student teachers, and it would be good for them as well to have those student teachers start at the beginning of the year, so that they can get that process as well.
Yeah, we can certainly extend it, that opportunity, just let her know that that's a possibility. They have a number of professional development activities that are occurring before school, so they might be coming for free and not being paid. I don't know, so I would just want to check, but she has full discretion of use of her budget for this purpose.
So if you could just probably, show this tab to her so that her teachers can, and the student teachers can support those young people as well. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mr. Eisler.
Thanks, Mrs. I just want to pick up on Camp Guyasuta in 9th Grade Nation. And there was a really good report on public radio about Summer Dreamers and how there's a decrease in the number of students served because of the decreased amount of money we have, yet we're trying to keep these programs going in very, very tough budget times. And I agree with Dr. Hawley. I think that this is just a superb program for students. If you could, I mean, I don't want anything big, but it could even come, Dr. Lane, in your weekly report to the board. If we could just find out all the activities that are going on in 9th Grade Nation. I mean, I know that last year we had to end the events at Heinz Field. I mean, I know that every year because of dollars we've had to cut back, but we're still trying to keep something going, knowing how important this transition period is in 9th grade. So nothing long, but just the fact that we are still doing Camp Guyasuta, which is a transportation issue from the schools, and then the other activities that do go on within the schools. What used to be, we would open a week ahead of time, and it would be 4 or 5 days of activities, and I know that that's been cut back year to year to year to year based on the dollars we have. So just a little bit of an update for the board I think would really be good, but I'm glad that we are continuing this in very, very tough budget times because I think it's important for the students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Mr. McCray.
Thank you. On number, let's see, 27. I don't know if I understand this. Can we get some more information on exactly what is going on with this program? The Bricks film?
Is this item 27? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the actual tab. I'm going to ask Dr. Lane to jump in on this because I don't know how Janine's name got on this, and originally it was your name, but this is what I know about this tab.
We don't put her name.
Now I know how it happened.
We remove her.
This is actually a screening for a movie that I believe our principal, Mrs. Sacco, actually reviewed. It's a recommendation that comes from Dr. Nagaro at NYU, who's working in the transition to really engage the broader school community, the community teachers, in a conversation. What's nice about this is that they just don't watch the actual film, but there's actually, you know, the actual step back with the directors of the movie to actually talk about and kind of process. So it's really a professional development activity for the broader community. And I don't know, Dr. Lane, if you want to add more to that.
Yeah, I wish that I could tell you more, but that really summarizes it. It's a movie, as I understand, that is focused on adults building relationships with young people so that they can be successful. And we tried to get opportunity to actually see the movie ahead of time, but unfortunately we cannot do that. But they did, Dr. Nagaro and his staff recommended this as a kind of a opening event for Perry Oliver, and because they needed some help financially with it, we opened it up to more than just folks at Perry Oliver. So we're going to have, as I said, we're going to have it more as a community event, but there is work together afterwards to process and derive what the appropriate learning. It's not just sitting and watching a film and everybody leaves. So.
We've done that on screenings of other films, I think, so that's, okay, that makes sense to me now. On number 28, it talks about the, I think the dates are wrong on this, on the third line, under resolved. August 21, 2012 to August 23, 2012. Should it be 2013?
No, this tab is just to pay, it's just 3 days to pay for the teachers because that would be, it's outside of their student teaching commitment.
Because it goes on to talk about what's going on during the whole year, and that kind of confused me a little bit. But it's just 3 days.
Well, the teachers will be there all year, but we only have to pay for the first 3 days that weren't covered under their student teaching agreement.
Okay, thank you. And finally, number 34, I believe it is. This is CPR training. I can't stress the importance of this enough. I think everybody should be trained in CPR. You know, recently Channel 2 news anchor, she's jumping on board with this, and very good reason. Also, are you doing the defibrillators along with the CPR? Is that part of the training?
Yes,
Excellent.
it
I see
is.
a head shaking. That's what I need to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Ms. Shealy.
Thank you. And I think I've asked this before. Didn't Perry have a PRC? Perry?
Yeah.
Perry did not have a PRC. They have,
See, I thought so too.
they have student advisory, but they do not have career ladder teacher PRCs.
So the first year of PRCs, there was no one, they didn't do a pilot or anything at Perry?
We're going to have Dr. Atua. Come on up, Dr. Atua.
Christiana, to Assistant Superintendent. Yes, Perry did participate in the pilot year, which was 2 years ago.
Could you help refresh my memory as to why they didn't continue on?
From what Dr. Lippert said, it was because of the candidate pool that we had for PRC. We did not have enough candidates to staff all the schools.
Yes. Yeah, I do. It just gets frustrating that teachers get pulled to, or even maybe choose to go to some schools but not others, so that kids who have great needs don't get the services that they deserve and are worthy of. So I guess my commentary, and I'll stop there, is that we should really look at helping Perry, particularly with the merger between Oliver and Perry, getting a PRC up and going.
As of now, we do not have the candidate pool to support a program at Perry, but we do have other programs in place to support the transition. We do have the school planning and working with Pedro's group, and we do have other support plan in place. We are clustering school this year, and we are supporting them through the support model, the cluster support model.
Thank you, Dr. Arturo, that's helpful.
Thank
but
you.
I would still like to see our PRC, so that's my editorial. I'm done.
I would too.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Very quickly on number 25, Camp Guy Suit. I know it's probably been asked or mentioned before, but the reason Ninth Grade Nation, the event at Heinz Field, was eliminated, was that solely on cost? Okay. The other question is, are all 8 to 9 students included in Ninth Grade Nation throughout the district?
All ninth grade students are across our 9 secondary schools.
Thank you. On number 27, that's the Washington Cone Media Productions. Great opportunity. You said it's going to be expanded beyond the Perry Oliver community. Is that any other school in the district that's going through mergers or transitions or things of that nature, or who does that include?
We have not actually decided how it's going to be on space available, frankly. Clearly, we probably can't get all the high schools in there, wherever space we have, but we will, as I said, to the extent possible, get as many people who want to participate in it able to.
The only side comment that I have on this is that sometimes perceptions can override reality, and the perception is that the district is doing everything it can to make the Perry Oliver transition work smoothly, whereas we have kids coming back to University Preparatory School at Margaret Malines this year. We have different, we saw seven different neighborhoods that are coming to that school. Also, changes at Brashear, also of that nature. But it doesn't, we don't see the other efforts from the district to support that as well, as much as we see it for Perry and Oliver. So we could be or could not be doing it, but to make sure that we're treating all of our transitions, as doing as much as we can to make all of our transitions smooth throughout the district.
On this particular situation, as I said, well, it's on a kind of a space available basis, but we certainly have the ability to prioritize other high schools, and whatever space available, we give it to them, ones that we feel might need the support. So we certainly can reach out to Mr. Hardy and see if the staff at Malines might be interested in participating.
It could be that, or if we do something other than that special or specific to that school that's in line with making their transition just as smooth as all the transitions we're having throughout the district. Because anytime we're mixing populations that haven't been mixed heretofore, maybe been mixed 20 years ago, but still currently new people coming to see new people, how do you all get along? How does the community support it? How do the parents, how are they engaged with it, and getting everybody on the same page at the same time so that it works equitably and successfully throughout the district. So, number 29, that's the one where we're paying a tutor specific to Pittsburgh Beechwood. Do all schools have this opportunity to hire tutors, or what?
Yes, they do.
Get up, thank you. And it's their choosing as to whether they do or don't. And does that come out of their site-based budget, or?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Item number, am I still in the same?
36 is next.
Thank you. That's good. I'll take all the help I can get. So. I think all the questions have been asked. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Thank you, Ms. Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter and Ms. Shealy. Moving on to general authorizations, number 36 through 53, minus number 37 that has been pulled. It's the yellow sheets. Mr. Brentley, we'll start with you.
No questions at this time.
Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to go to number 40. It's a great idea. Just make sure that clearances will be Okay, thank you. And on number 41, can you tell me how much the actual book is going to cost us?
This is the second grade novel, right?
I believe it is.
The cost per book. Virginia Hill, do you know the cost per book? No, but we can get that for you. It's not on the book I just checked, yeah.
Okay. Well, or how many books? Does anybody see where it says how many books?
Oh, yeah, I can tell you about how many books. Every child gets a book. So every second grader in the district will get a book. They have to return it.
How many second graders do we have?
Just
we have 25 second graders, that's 1,000 a book.
I was just curious to know how much the book was, that's all.
It's hot in here, right? I mean,
I'm sorry, I asked the question. Is the number 50 the same with the clearances, please? Number 50 the same clearances for clearances. And then I'm going to bring attention to number 52. Mr. Sumter, Mr. McCray, and myself are the committee for the naming of the school. I believe we collectively would like to have Dr. Lane review the name title before we bring it forward next week at the legislative meeting. If possible, they'll do what they need to do before that. So we'd like to keep the placeholder open. I'm sorry? Yeah, we'll discuss it at executive session and then hopefully, so we still want to keep the placeholder open for the legislative book, okay? Other than that, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Fink.
Just one question. Number 47. I had it. I guess I didn't have it good enough. These bicycles were given to students who had perfect attendance. If you had 2 bicycles per school and you had 6 kids with perfect attendance, was it a lottery? How did the children get chosen?
Dr. Lippert hasn't been good with math tonight. I'm going to try to answer this. I don't know. We did ask for clarification about that, and Dr. Rudak isn't here. We can get you that information. It would have had to have been done by some type of lottery if the children achieved the bar. That's typically how it's done.
Just curious. I just wondered how they accomplished that.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink. Dr. Hawley.
Yes, the after-school programs that, for number 36, that were chosen, how will you know what schools they're going to be working with? Did I miss that? Or is this a selection that they can just choose from?
So there's, what happens, Holly O'Donnell, who works under Jan, and Ms. Ripper, you can provide more specifics if I don't say this accurately, but it's a mutual matching between what the school asked for and the partner. A lot of these partners have long-standing relationships, so it's about trying to match. One of the things that we do is, Holly's been great with this, Mrs. O'Donnell, about getting the actual providers at Leadership Academy Week so that principals can kind of shop for different providers for their students. So it's really about making the matches and not imposing partnerships. And what we do is we try to facilitate that if somebody wants something, we try to connect the partner. But a lot of it is, or the majority of it, I should say, is driven by principal and school choice.
So the schools don't have to pay for these? Who pays for them?
They get outside grants and funding. This is no cost to the district.
We never had that. Okay. I want to go to number 47 as well. Who chose this? Did this come to as a donation to the school district? And, okay, tell me how these schools got chosen.
The donors pick the schools.
Okay. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Mrs. Asuda. Mr. Weiss, on 36, because we're dealing with a memo of understanding, I'm assuming that this is the exact same memorandum of understanding that we did last year with these organizations?
Yes.
And they're all no costs, but we're covered liability-wise and other which ways, since we'll be working with community partners?
Insurance and clearances.
Great, thank you. I know that you pulled 37, but I hope it comes back, and I don't think it can come back soon enough. I think it's a great idea, and again, by a judge at the Court of Common Plea, many of them there, who is deeply interested in children and truancy, and I know that this has been a commitment of his, so the sooner this is worked out, as far as I'm concerned, the better. And again, just in terms of the 46 on, where we get into these donations, I think it's really commendable that there are so many organizations like PNC and the Aviary, and as Dr. Lippert said, the Spectography Association, which this is, I think, the second or third year that they've done this. I mean, this is not a first-year grant to SciTech, but it's just great to see everybody, and the Pirates again came through, and I think that is really fantastic since they're drawing such great attendance. But it's proof that this community, we really do need to function very well with this community as partners in a lot of what we do. So thank you to all those people who have given donations. Thanks, Mrs. Asuda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Mr. McCray.
Thank you. On number 41, the storm, is there a copy of that in the board office for us?
I actually have your copy, and
Okay.
I just wanted to follow up, and I'm glad Mrs. Clazy just walked back in. So we're ordering 2,000 copies of this, and the cost per novel is $12.50. So this is actually your copy. It was hard to get. I wanted to bring this one because I didn't want to bring all my other.
I was just going to say, the official enrollment for second grade was 1985 as of last fall.
And we order those additional books so that teachers can actually study and read the book. So that's why we're ordering 2,000. So thank you.
Thank you. Was that first graders? Shouldn't we have looked at the number of first graders we had?
I will.
Thank you. That's a good point, yeah. Number 47. This is a great program, the bicycle giveaways, and the most phenomenal thing about the whole thing is they're giving a helmet, too. You know, I thick a head as I have, I still need a helmet. Although I don't wear a helmet anymore, I'm retired. The donations, again, Mr. Eisler covered the donations. It's phenomenal. We got the Pirates, we got the Riverhounds of all. Oh, man, we got everybody giving us. It's so great to see the children have these opportunities in a lot of different places. And then and that was all I have. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Ms. Shealy.
Thank you. Just a quick question on number 43, and it may be any other ones. This discusses that the foundation edition has an ebook available. Does the other, this is the biology textbooks. And I am assuming that this is more than one textbook. This is the foundation edition and a different one, which I've lost track of.
I can explain this.
Well, just to make sure you hit this point, is the ebook available for all of the editions?
That answer is yes. And the AP biology textbook is a different textbook. And that's number 42, I believe, in your packet. Yeah, the AP biology is 42, different publisher, different textbook. Number 43 covers, same publisher, same edition. It covers your CAS, it covers your PSP, and it covers your academic biology. Your academic biology has what's called the Foundation Edition, which just builds in some more scaffolds for our academic biology students. But same publisher, same edition, ebooks available on all of them.
I'm sorry, I am still confused. So is there one book for all three levels with a supplement for academic, or are there two different books? PSP and CAS use book A, academic uses book B.
Yeah, but when you look at the books, I think they're in the board office. The books will feel the same sequence of how the units are laid out. What you just have is a little bit more scaffolding in the foundation edition, but same content, same authors.
And they all have e-books. Why do they, and this talks about scaffolding, reading. Do they need to scaffold? Why don't they scaffold math? Or should they?
That's actually a very good suggestion. I have to look closely at our CME, because the CME series is what we have in 9th grade. I'll have to see if that edition, we might not have called it out in the board tab, to see if it does come with supplemental. A lot of them do come with supplemental. I just have to see this particular edition, though. It's actually very nice because it builds it in, and it's actually a different book, but it still looks very rigorous, has very good content. So I'll be interested in your feedback on it.
Thank you, Dr. Lippert. That's it for me, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Ms. Schilling. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Very quickly on item number 41, that's the second grade novel, The Storm. Are we going to be purchasing novels every year for second grade students?
No, this is actually, they read the book and return it at the end of 2nd grade. Why I hesitate is I'm not sure if we're going to, off the top of my head, we might be doing 2 novel studies in 2nd grade, but this is the first. Another one might be coming. I'm just not certain if we're starting, if we have 1 and then scaffolding in 2nd grade to 2. But they actually read this and then return it, and then students get it the following year.
Thank you very much. That clears that up because it gave the I got the impression we were buying the books for the students to keep. So if they're returning it, fine, as long as they take care of them and they're sanitized before the next kids get them. That's it. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley.
One other question I just wanted to mention for number 52, the renaming of the online academy. You know, and this is not to, any negative thing towards anybody, but, sometimes as a board, when we name or make these recommendations, there's a disconnect in terms of what the community can identify with, and so there is a provision in our policy where the students are supposed to have a say or make some recommendations. Now, I don't think there are any students in the program yet. Is that correct, Doctor?
Actually, no, but Mr. Brentley, there were students and parents who were invited to participate. If your next question is how were these students and parents selected, I don't know. I'd have to find out that information for you. But as I understood it, none of the students or parents who were invited actually did participate in this process.
That can be a problem, Doctor. I mean, it's minor, but I mean, if we're constantly reaching out, and I want to just suggest, why not, create an online naming contest from our students, and why not allow them to be creative and to submit logos? And let them play with it. After all, if we want to get them to take classes online, wouldn't this be their first classroom assignment, pretty much? Yeah. But, I mean, if we can put that out and do the same kind of marketing piece, give them the first 15 days of the school, maybe break it off and let them break off into groups to do the group learning so they can submit it by schools. Maybe each school can submit a logo. But if we're going to get students, we have to do something that they can identify with to even consider it. So that is just a suggestion. Even if you want to take it a step further there, we might want to engage middle school students, because high school students may have 1 or 2 years left and they're out. But a middle school student, they have a whole new different logo. How they talk, how they do things that they can identify with. So it's a suggestion, but I think it would really be nice and creative, especially since we have a provision in there that's supposed to have some input from students, and we didn't. So, suggestion.
I know that as the board, you have a naming committee, so we certainly can confer with them about, what we could do in terms of getting some engagement from the community in terms of students and parents.
Thank you. Moving on to the Committee on Business and the Committee on Finance. And Mr. Joseph is going to give us an overview of it.
I'd like to call your attention to item number 15 under consultants and contracted services. This is for the purchase of package shaping network efficiency equipment from E+. This needs to be amended to say that these items will be acquired using CoStar's pricing and not PEPM pricing. Item number 15. This equipment will be acquired using CoStar's pricing and not PEPM pricing. Thank you very much, Mrs. Zuda.
Anything else you'd like to update us that's in here?
No, we're ready for questions now.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just say, I like how they're numbered. I guess they're a little bit easier to follow. So we will start with consultants and contracted services. It's the pink pages, numbers 1 through 24. Mr. Brentley, we'll start with you.
I don't have any questions in the packet, but it's just a general question, and I think I raised a question before. With the closing of some of these schools, especially some of the high schools, if we are planning on throwing some of our equipment away, can we find a way before we throw anything away that we invite the neighborhood football leagues to come in and to pick up if there's something that they can possibly use? I'm thinking about old equipment, padding, or the football pads, or anything, just something that they can use. They are struggling as we speak to volunteer and work with our children. So I just wanted to ask that again, Mr. Camarda, if we can keep that in mind, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Scalise.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Majority of this stuff we do go over in our Business and Finance Subcommittee, but some of these items we were not able to go over. Mr. Campbell, do you think you can help me out a little bit? Number 8, number 9. What's an iPad cart?
So for item number 8, this tab is to purchase protectors for the iPads. Yes, but like that, but a little bit more ruggedized for classrooms. So they will have, they will be covered around all 4 corners, which is where you normally get the damage and screen cracks with iPads. That's the most common issue with iPads. So these are covers and protection for the iPads that the board approved earlier. Item number 9, the iPad carts. Okay, we're good? So the iPad carts allow centralized management of the iPad devices. So for instance, on each cart you will have 30 iPads. And so the teacher can control the applications that are loaded on the iPads, and they also serve as charging stations. And they also are secured. So once the iPads are in there, they can be locked and stored while they charge.
Let's go back to the carts for a second. So I get the charging part. What do you mean that I lost you on the beginning? I lost you. I'm not going to pretend I got it because I didn't. It just went.
Okay, so the carts gives the educator master control of all the devices. They can connect a laptop to the cart, and if they choose certain applications for reading, they can load all of those devices simultaneously by using the cart as the vehicle connected to a laptop. It's a charging / configuration station.
Okay, so I know one of us asked this question the last time when we bought the iPads. I think we bought, what, 6,000 of them, am I right? And I don't know how they got distributed. I have no idea who gets them or who doesn't. So is there like training that's gonna go on with this?
Absolutely. As a part of the lease that was approved, we will have a full-time Apple rep assigned to the district for the period of a year, for 1 year. And also, our technicians are being trained currently, supported by Apple technicians on the different configurations and the hardware and software.
And is that gonna be an extra cost too, or is that already incorporated?
That's already included.
Okay,
Everything's
so I guess my question would have been then, how come we didn't do this all at one time when we bought the iPads? I mean, those iPads cost a lot of money, and then we added all this into it. How come we didn't do it all at one time?
So primarily because strategically, we're trying to do just-in-time purchases, so we don't have storage issues and have equipment sitting in boxes. And so we try to time the purchases and rollout so that we just won't have equipment on the south side waiting to be deployed.
Well, won't we have the iPads waiting to be deployed? The iPads themselves, we already got them, didn't we?
So the process, we've already started the configuration process. And so with Apple, they do all of that for us as a part of the initial lease. They load them with a preset configuration of applications that we've given them. So they are doing that now. So we really don't need the charging stations immediately until they actually go into the schools.
So we don't have the iPads right now either, or do we?
They're starting to ship, yes.
They're starting to ship.
Could I answer one of your other questions? I just think it came up through Dr. Lane when she met with you a couple weeks ago. In terms of where we are with the iPad deployment, if you remember, we did do an RFP process to schools, and we did update the board that we did have the majority of our schools actually submit the RFP. So we've just finished the second round of screening, and we'll be notifying principals and the board as to the awardees. So we do have that information will be coming by the end of this week. So we just finished it, the academic team just finished the review. It's a lengthy process because you have to go through scoring multiple times each proposal, and then you have to look across multiple factors and criteria in order to award them. But we'll be sharing that information with you in the next couple of days.
Okay. I think I asked you this question once before, Mr. Campbell. I'm just going to ask it again for the record. Why did we choose, again, iPads opposed to any other Android? I know I asked it before, but...
So iPads, Android operating system is different. So you have two worlds. You have the PC and Mac world. And Mrs. Zuda, I remember one time at a meeting you said it's not so much the device, and very correct. With the iPad, it's the software, and I think now close to 1 billion applications that can be used, a lot of which are free. Also, in working with the academic team and planning this process, we're starting to talk about what a ebook strategy will look like for the district. So when purchases are made, that's a part of making sure that that piece is available and building a platform to move forward into. There are districts daily now going totally digital. I shared with Dr. Lane and the cabinet earlier that the city of Huntsville school system, totally digital, no textbooks. Everything all the books being delivered via laptops, which I don't agree with, but that's the direction.
Now that you said the ebooks, are we able to get an ebook from the Carnegie Library, for example, onto the iPad? Does that work?
Yes. If you have a library account, you can check out ebooks and return them through your iPad.
Do our students know that? I mean, wouldn't that be a great thing to make sure our students know that they can get an ebook through there? I know they know more than we do, okay, but I was just saying, do they, yeah, just, I'm still on the book. Okay. But I mean, can I think they need to be clear about that.
And they, believe it or not, a lot of students use smartphones to read books.
I know.
And so it's...
Trust me, I know. I don't know how they read it, but I know. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clazy. Since we have been talking about IT so much, I'm going to jump over a minute to Mr. Sumter, who is our IT chairperson. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Azuda. What I had intended or thought, because of the number of items in this section to relate to computers and software, that if Mr. Campbell could walk us through each of those quickly before we start asking questions, because it might answer a lot of questions that we may have in that presentation. If he could do that quickly, I think it might help facilitate going through this section rather than each board member having their own concerns and having to wait to get through the whole thing. The other thing is, even though it was mentioned about the RFP for the laptops, not for the laptops, for the iPads, my concern was that the iPads would be delivered on a more equitable basis, not based on capabilities of certain teachers or principals within the district, because that may go beyond the concern of equity. If we're talking about getting the most help to the students that need it and how well these could facilitate that. So it'd be interesting to see how they rank, but if we see that there are needy schools that aren't even in the competition or in the whole process, I think we'd have to revisit that for the purpose of equity rather than ability of individuals to submit proposals. But Mr. Campbell, I'd turn it over to you if you could quickly summarize or go through the items of software or computer concern.
I'll be happy to. I'll ask Dr. Lippert to handle the academic side, and I'll handle the tech side.
Let's ask a question to clarification. You know, for the sake of time, you know, to go through all these items individually, we have it here, we have the description, if there's any additional information, but it also would allow, if there are board members for any individual item, but I mean, for the sake of time, it is only a suggestion. We're close to 9 o'clock or 8:30, and he's given a complete description. There's everything here that we need. It just seems like something that would prolong the meeting unnecessarily. And so I'm just raising that question and asking we have some consideration.
Myself, I think what Mr. Sumter is trying to do is actually use the time better so that we have a common understanding of what the overall goal is, which would possibly reduce individual questions. Is that what?
Precisely.
Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, so we'll start back at number 5 because this is technology related. So item number 5 is actually, we did some of these last month, so this is related to some of the annual renewals that support academic programs. So number 5, Discovery Education, is an annual renewal that supports all content areas that allow teachers to have access K through 12 in accessing specific digital resources. The Institute for Learning, what that provides is access again to software that teachers can use for model lessons. A lot of principals use it for staff professional development, so it's an annual license for software and to use their materials district-wide. Number 7 is again an annual renewal. This is Compass Learning. Compass Learning has been in the district for quite some time. It typically supports students supplementally in reading and in math to get extra practice. It's one of our software programs that are available any place where there's internet connectivity. So let's say a student goes to Carnegie Library, gets on the computer, they can access and practice their math via Compass Learning or reading. Mr. Campbell covered number 8. I don't know if you want to say anything else on number 8, Mark. Mr. Campbell also talked about number 9. Number 10 supports our launch of our career ladder role, the Instructional Teacher Leader 2, which is new for this upcoming year. It equips them, we have 75 of them, it equips them with a little iPod. Do you remember the iPods? Plug your headphones into. The little iPod device actually doubles as a camera and recording device that allows them to videotape their classroom instruction, focuses on the teacher, not the students, or as they're working with teachers, to videotape themselves and a teacher having a post-observation conference, a pre-conference. And the number 11 is companion to the iPod devices, and it actually provides a tripod, a microphone, and a wide-angle lens so that they can do a panoramic view of the classroom as they're analyzing instruction. Just before it comes up, we do comply with the rights through our legal office of how we videotape students and how we use it. This is not video that goes live or that's ever posted for other people to access. It's for teacher professional development, so this doesn't go live anywhere. And then number 12 is actually providing our Instructional Teacher Leader 2s again with actual laptops to be able to take their laptops as they work with other teachers to conduct observations. And that is provided under those 3, 10, 11, and 12 are not funded out of general fund. It's funded from our Empowering Effective Teachers Gates Foundation grant. And I guess I'm passing back to you for 13.
Okay, number 13, support contract with Smart Solutions to provide support for all of the smart boards throughout the district. We have not had a support contract in place for smart boards. 14 is a renewal for Dell server maintenance, an annual item. Number 15 is basically a traffic cop for data on our network. Every type of data that transpires against our highway on the back end takes up either 1 or 2 lanes, depending on the type. For instance, voice may take 2 lanes, music 3 lanes. This allows us to really control how much of the highway that those vehicles take. Items number 16 and 17, I want to remind the board that during the technology presentation we mentioned that our goal is to have every school wireless by the end of this academic year, and this is to support phase 2 of that effort, leveraging E-rate. The first item is the actual installation and configuration of the devices that would be installed in the schools, and the second item, number 17, is the cabling in support of that effort.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you. Okay, that does help, Mr. Campbell. That was a good idea, Mr. Sumter. I do have 2 questions, or not actually 2 questions, just 2 things I'd like to bring to the attention. 13 and 14 are retroactive. Are these dates wrong? It says July 1st through December 31st. Today's the 18th. And by the time we vote on it, the dates are both wrong on both of them. So
Yes,
you have
the
to
dates
just
are
check it,
correct. Okay.
change it for the
Thank you.
legislative meeting. That's all I have there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Fink.
With all of the new technology that we're going to be putting in the schools, what about keyboard skills, the computers that we already have? My concern being that when our graduates go out, particularly if they're in an office environment working, the standard for that kind of work is still a regular computer. And the keyboards on an iPad are different than the keyboards on a regular computer. So are our kids still are they still being familiarized with the keyboard on a regular computer so that they can use that if they need to and when they get a job?
The keyboard on an iPad is the same. It's a Raider QWERTY keyboard, just like on an old-style typewriter. But I think the bigger concern with our kids is their typing skills are 2 thumbs. They do most of their typing on a smartphone. And so they're not used to even using all 10 digits for typing. So.
Do they get that in school?
Yeah, so I think that they do get some keyboarding, but not to the extent that we probably did when we were in school.
When I was in school, we had manual typewriters. Come on.
Thank you, Mrs. Spink. Dr. Hawley?
I want to thank Mr. Campbell for getting the Smartboard Technologies to give us a warranty or something so that we wouldn't have to pay for it. But are the schools going to have to pay for this, or are you paying for it?
You're paying for it.
I don't know, he's getting the money.
You're paying for it.
No, are you paying for it? Are you paying for it? Or will the schools have?
The support contract is being supported through the Office of Information Technology. We've really looked at what's the best way to provide the support, and we wanted to take we wanted to take the schools out of the IT business, and so their responsibility will just be to report the problems, and we'll take care of them.
Oh, okay, great. Then my next question really is for Mr. Camarda. Number 20. I see that Kappa is getting their spaces paid for by the district. Is that paid for by us?
As soon as we open the building, the Kappa teachers contribute the same that individuals pay to park at this building, and we pick up the difference for the additional costs related to a downtown space.
Okay,
And
great.
that's been our past practice.
That's been your past practice. Okay. Then tell me what will, and I know this isn't, it's nowhere in the packet. I've been looking for it. How are we going to park for Obama with the numbers of teachers that they have?
We've been working with the URA. We have a meeting set up, I think it's the 24th of July, with the East Liberty Development Corporation and the URA down in the URA offices, and we're working on it.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mr. Eisler?
Thanks, Mrs. Azuda. On 7, Dr. Lippert, just a question to you, and because we go through licenses every year in renewals, and I understand that. Is this utilized heavily by students? I mean, do we know that?
What we did this year, because this is funded out of Title, and you know that we did take a Title I reduction. What we did is we looked at utilization, and Compass Learning is very highly used amongst K-8 grade bands, not utilized amongst the high school. A lot of K-8 buildings use it, or schools use it, you know, for interventions, enrichment activities. Our high schools don't have a lot of time in their day to be able to do that, so we didn't renew the high school licensing. So this is an actual reduction from our previous tab last year. But yes, we're always looking at.
Great, thank you. I mean, one, that we can take a look at utilization, which I think is really important, and two, you did really change it this year. And then, Mr. Joseph or Mr. Camarda, on 24, and I asked a question on this one, and again, I know that energy costs fluctuate from year to year, but there was a point in time where we would take a long-term contract, and this is a one-year contract, and can you just tell me why?
This tab is actually not for the contract for the energy rates. It's for the transmission and metering to 21 locations. So we still pay to use the lines to transport gas and meter the gas. But you can expect within the next month we'll bring something forward for the long-term rates.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for that clarification. Thank you, Mrs. Suda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Mr. McCray?
Thank you. Just a quick question, Mr. Campbell. You said the carts they're going to be able to charge or load each iPad with the laptop. Is it a Mac or a Dell, or what kind of laptop, and does it come with the cart?
That part is vendor agnostic. It doesn't matter. You can use either platform to load.
Just glad we didn't have to buy more laptops. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Ms. Shealy.
Mrs. Scalise alluded to the fact that we bought 6,000 iPads. Why are we only buying the ancillary equipment for 3,000?
So this is based on the projected use. How many will actually go to teachers versus students, and again, each cart will hold 30 devices.
Implies, being that this is math major night, half of them will be used by adults?
Well, or it's you can rotate use as well.
Thank you, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can finish, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, you got me, that's fine.
Okay, so, and I'm not sure which, the number 10, I heard and I read that that's the iPod Touches. Why are we doing touches and not nanos? Nanos can film too, and they would be much less expensive.
From the academic perspective, I can tell you that we worked with Scott Katowski, our Director of Technology, so I'd have to go back and ask that question. I think it's the compatibility to, or the relation to number 11, the ability to attach the tripod, the microphone, and being able to panoramically view. So I think it's the quality of the videotape that you can get from a Nano to an iPod Touch, but I'm not the expert between Nanos and iPods, but I think it has to do with the compatibility to be able to do the microphoning and the panoramic video. But we can check that out for you.
Yeah, please do, because yeah, I think Nanos will record sound also. I'm an Apple person, and I know that they're much less expensive than touches, and particularly with teachers having access to iPads, they don't need the functionality of a touch, because that's kind of, a touch is just a mini iPad in a lot of ways.
So one thing I want to clarify, I know this is a lot in one, the ITL2s don't automatically get iPads. They might go to a school that is part of an award, but they're not, ITL2s are our instructional teacher leaders that are launching, so we're not equipping them with iPads. They chose to go with number 10, 11, and 12 in terms of their technology, not just give them off of our, this doesn't dip in at all to the 6,000 that we're going into schools for students. This is just for the career ladder teachers. So I'll follow up.
Yeah, please do. So, and I'm sorry, Mr. Campbell, I think I've confused myself. So we are, like, it was, the carts were 3,000, but so were the protectors. There are only 3,000 protectors in here. Are there 6? Okay.
There were 3,000 hard cases and 3,000 soft cases.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. I want to thank Dr. Lippert and Mr. Campbell for their 4-minute presentation that helped to edify the board, such that at 8:25 we began, and here we are at 8:45, and I have no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Moving on to payments authorized, numbers 25 through 27. Mr. Brentley, any questions?
No, I don't. No,
It's the blue pages. Mrs.
Yeah.
Fink. Dr. Hawley. Mr. Eisler. Mr. McCray. Ms. Shealy. Blue. Mr. Sumter.
No, thank you.
All right, yellow pages, 28 to 31. You want to go back to the blue? Okay, we're going to the yellow pages, 28 through 31. Mr. Brentley.
Just on the 28, this is the cost. This is for all schools, or I'm looking at it, or is it just for the high school? This is the insurance, I guess, for our sports athletic program. Who's Mr. Weiss? Is that correct? Why do they have 3 to 8 who were Pittsburgh? So I guess it's all students. This is for the district. So we buy as a policy for the district. Anybody who signs up underneath us is covered under that policy. Okay, I don't know how they, okay. The other thing I wanted to mention too is that I just wanted to take a second and share with you, Dr. Lane, as well as the board president, my disappointment in our not being able to work with the neighborhood athletic programs. As you know, that there are 2 programs offering football programs, 8 days for the use of Oliver School, and we're charging them $15,000. We then took it down to 12, and now it's down to 10. And I just want to remind my colleagues, in certain communities, money is very hard to raise when you're a group of volunteers to keep our kids off the street. So I am disappointed that this board leadership did not find a way to adjust that, especially in light of the fact for those kids on the north side, we just closed Northview School. The majority of them are from Northview. And then as a district, we took out some of the middle school sports. And so I think when we do those kinds of things, we should partner with these neighborhood leagues and partner with them and show that we appreciate them working with our children. So I just wanted to express my disappointment and to say again, it's not too late to adjust. So these kids will have an opportunity to have some activities this summer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brentley. And hopefully the policy committee will be reviewing that. And when it comes before the board, you'll be able to attend the meeting so that you can have input into the policy as it may or may not be revised.
Season will be over by then.
Mrs. Fink. Dr. Hawley.
Is there any way for us to bring that policy to the board quicker, policy chair? Is there any way that we can possibly do that?
Yeah. Whatever.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Whatever suggestion you have, we will follow. I mean, whatever you want to do. I mean, in terms of the policy committee, there are 3 board members. We can have a 4th without having to, because of the quorum issue. But then we will bring it again, whatever the decision of the committee is, we'll bring it before the whole board in a workshop. So however you want to do it, we'll do it. And we're scheduled, Ms. Swingert, I think we're scheduled at the 26th or 27th? Yeah, right. So we're scheduled next week. We moved it up. I mean, we weren't going to meet this summer. We moved it up primarily to do this. And again, I think one of the things we have to look at in the cost is most of the cost is personnel cost of security and maintenance folks. So we have to cover. And that's what we have to look at. It's not field rental costs per se. It is really staff costs that we have to have, I think, because of legal and liability issues. But the solicitor will be at the meeting also.
So, Mr. Weiss, you'll be able to tell us what the legalities are in terms of making that support for that. Because I agree with Mr. Brentley wholeheartedly. My grandchildren play sports. And it's really important that we try to do as much as we possibly can do for these communities that are really in financial straits. And we're in financial straits as well, but we also want to be good stewards to all of the children in our community and trying to support them to keep the children doing something that's really more proactive than just running around doing whatever.
We'll provide whatever input is necessary to the committee to address those parts of the policy and the needs that they engender. So we'll be present at those meetings and give that input.
And Mr. Camardo, would you be there as well to give any type of?
Yes, I will.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Eisler.
Thanks, Mrs. Azuda, and Mr. Joseph. I mean, we will have the team there to go through costs and everything. Mr. Weiss or Mr. Camardo or Mr. Joseph, on the TIF that we're being asked to vote on next week, this is the final TIF agreement?
Yes.
Okay. For the Market Square property?
Correct.
So we have voted once?
Voted to approve participation in the committee.
Right.
This is now the agreement
The final
that came
vote,
out of
the
that
agreement is
process.
there, all that information was transmitted to us in Dr. Lane's report, I think, of 2 weeks ago. I understand that. I just want to make sure then, has the city taken this at all beyond just a discussion stage, city
Well,
council?
It was initially approved at city council.
Right,
Under the TIF law, the city votes last.
right, I'm with you on that. But
so-
I'm trying to find out if, we know that the TIF we're being asked to consider in the Strip District is very controversial within
That's-
city council. I know it's a separate one, I'm
Right.
just trying to determine, the question is not about that. My question is there any controversy in city council about this particular TIF?
No,
Okay, then about county council?
no.
Okay, so in this one, it seems as if the other two taxing bodies are going to support it if in fact we vote first, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Mr. McCray.
No, I'm good.
Ms. Shealy. Well, let's finish this first. Okay, Mr. Sumter. Okay, then Ms. Shealy, go ahead, go back.
Thank you. I just missed a question on number 18, and I didn't bother you, Ms. Barrow Martin, earlier, but I think on this one I have to. The demountables are being moved from Crescent. I guess I don't understand. Crescent, am I in the wrong place? Okay. If they're not losing classrooms, which I don't believe that they are, what were the demountables for?
I think we had some storage in there. I think there's, they aren't able to be used as classroom space right now.
They are unable to
Not
be
using them as
used.
classroom space right now.
So.
It's time to remove them.
How long have we been paying for them for storage?
I think actually these are ours, but it's time to remove them. Yeah, it's time to remove.
We own some, we rent some.
They're beyond
We
their,
own
they're beyond their
some.
useful life.
And this is a
Disposal.
disposal service?
Yes.
Thank you.
No further questions, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Wait. I'm sorry. Thank you for keeping me honest. What items does anyone want held for discussion at the legislative meeting for the Committee on Education? Okay, Committee on Education, I hear that there's somebody waiting for me, but I'm trying to find my paper. I can't find my paper. Robin, you ready? All right. Who has items? Mr. Sumter.
I can give you both now, 52 in education and 29 in business.
29. Mrs. Fink, any you unheld? Dr. Hawley, any you unheld? No. Mr. Eisler? Mr. McCray? No. Ms. Shealy? No. All righty. Thank you very much. Now the meeting's adjourned.